Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. Today we heard from powerful voices focused on a simple question. What is your vision of a digital future for all? We have heard how a digital future for everyone, everywhere, means a universal, affordable, meaningful, inclusive, sustainable, and prosperous digital future. Many of our speakers today have highlighted the urgent need to reduce the digital divide, not just in terms of achieving universal connectivity, but also to ensure that everyone has access to affordable and safe digital technology and the skills and capacities to use it meaningfully to improve their lives. From healthcare to education, climate mitigation, poverty alleviation, and gender equality, we have seen a diverse range of groundbreaking digital innovations that are driving progress towards achieving the SDGs. To quote Bianca Johnson, a young paraplegic woman who has regained her mobility thanks to technology, what we saw is that the future is the present. We've also heard what an inclusive architecture for AI governance looks like, building on the AI Advisory Body's report Governing AI for Humanity, with announcements on implementing its recommendations. And last but not least, we've heard how stakeholders and governments can join hands to deliver on the vision of the Global Digital Compact. None of this is possible without innovative, inclusive, and multi-stakeholder partnerships that focus on specific SDG goals and targets. The SDG Digital event this morning saw the announcement of, get this, $1.05 billion in pledges to support various initiatives to advance digital inclusion via the Partner to Connect platform. The Summit of the Future Action Day on Digital Today has shown us incredible examples of the inclusive and collaborative action being taken all over the world. Indeed, it has shown us the power of collective action. We are ready for the second half of this journey. Accelerate, innovate, collaborate, and lead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roman, for summarizing the sessions from the Digital Future for All sessions. Thank you very much. And thanks to all the rapporteurs for the thoughtful and comprehensive summaries that they've provided. Now we'll hear from a few respondents who will share their unique perspectives on the Pact for the Future. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce Anne Hidalgo and Axel van Trostenberg. Our first respondent, please join us on stage, Madame Hidalgo, Mr. Van Trostenberg. Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much for joining us. So our first respondent is Madame Hidalgo, who's a member of the Secretary General's Advisory Group on Local and Regional Governments and the Mayor of Paris, of course. And she'll share her reflections about the role governments play in implementing the pact at the local level. Merci beaucoup d'être parmi nous.
Thank you very much for being with us today. You're going to speak to us about the role that governments will play in implementing this Pact for the Future at the local level. Thank you. And thank you for hosting us. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Haider, who's opened up the door to multilateralism, including the various levels, including local authorities. What is now being proposed is that we follow up on what Martin Luther King said, that those who love peace need to know how to organize just as well as those that prefer war. And that's what we're talking about here. Multilateralism, what will that allow us to do? Well, it will enable us to act, because today, whether we're talking about climate change or the social impact of climate change, the fight against poverty, whether we're talking about democracy, we know that all of that can be evaluated in the lives of our citizens and within at the level of cities, because you have this phenomenon of people moving to the cities throughout the world for over 10 years now, well, since the Paris Agreement on climate change. We've been meeting in different networks that have an exchange on good practices, particularly with regard to climate, the fight against poverty, this issue of housing and access to housing. And we've been meeting in these networks, French-speaking networks, the C40, and for example, and for 10 years now, we've been working to try to get recognition for the place of local governments in global governance. Not to work against states or try to usurp anyone's authority. We want to join our forces together as part of a global coalition where actors need to be there. Civil society, NGOs, national authorities, and, of course, the private sector. What's being proposed today is to be able to be present at the table of negotiations, because we are essential players in the action that now needs to be carried out with regard to climate change. And in order to do that, and this is part of our agenda, we have to find funding that cities need, particularly cities in the south. They need access to funding so that they can bring about this transformation, living better, housing, air pollution, taking the pollution out of rivers. I think we're at a crossroads in this summit for the future, where we've seen the facts, the work is before us. What we need now is willingness to bring all players together, particularly those that are on the front lines, particularly the mayors. And I think of the Olympics and things like that, and what we experienced in Paris and what we tried to share with the whole world. And namely, it was this trust in humanism. I can assure you that living for more than a month as if the world were all in Paris for a month, where we had people from all continents, all religions, all languages, being brought together by sport, meeting in a peaceful environment where, as mayors, me as mayor, I was able to do everything I could to ensure that we had quality air, for example, so that the water of the Seine could be have the pollution taken out of it, so that we could extend this universal welcome, peaceful welcome. And when you experience that, I can tell you, you want to cultivate that. We can't extend those games or the Paralympic Games, but what we can do is take that trust in humanity and the ability of those that prefer peace, take that so that we can build this peace together. And that is the path that is now open to us, and it will be at the heart of the discussions on the Summit of the Future. Thank you very much.
Merci d'avoir souligné l'importance.
So, what you're saying is that it's important that local governments can and should play a big role in this Pact for the Future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to hear from Mr. Axel van Trostenberg, the Senior Managing Director of the World Bank, who will share his reflections on how the summit and the Pact for the Future can contribute to reform our global international financial architecture.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon and a late Saturday afternoon. I hope that everybody stays focused. But first, a congratulations to the fantastic Olympic Games. I think that were fantastically done. I think the Summit of the Future is yet another reminder that we need to stay engaged on development. The SDGs are off track, and we cannot forget that. And so the Summit of the Future should not be limited to words. We need to encourage deeds and action. And the problem, what we are having is we need to have governments engaged, private sector engaged, and yes, multilaterals. Yet multilateralism is under threat. And many are questioning why you have multilateral organizations, be it the UN, be it the multilateral development banks. Yet many problems, and the mayor just mentioned climate change, you cannot solve alone. It will require international global collaboration if we want to succeed. So that it means that we actually need to put new life in multilateralism. And if you believe in that, you need to invest. And you cannot limit the investment to words only. It will require a significant amount. We don't need to remind people, and last year at the midterm review of the SDGs, we will need trillions of dollars. And that will have to come from all sources, from government, from private sector, from multilaterals. And that is, I think, the critical one where we need to focus. And some speakers talked about the financing. So I think one can always lecture to the other that you do. I think the multilaterals should start by themselves. So that is one of the areas where we actually also at the bank started the whole reform process. And also to see, can you actually do more with the existing resources? Because many governments, and that we have to admit, they are living under fiscal stress. It's not that there is unlimited resources available. And I think here we have done that, and that is a necessary condition. And more needs to be done. How can we get the private sector